murder, and everything else. My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. And Joy and I are two very old friends who are going to talk about murder and everything else.
And a quick reminder that this podcast is not for kids.
No, it's not. And definitely not today because we are going back to murder.
Hey, Cheryl, the holidays are right around the corner. Do you have any good parties or any fun events planned for the holidays?
Well, Kevin and I are very blessed to be invited every year since we've lived in Arizona to our in-laws, um, for a caroling party and then dinner on Christmas. And the caroling party is like December 2nd. And it's not a true caroling. I guess they used to do it probably before. They actually went door to door in that neighborhood, which is a beautiful neighborhood, by the way, in Scottsdale. Excuse me, but I'm going to assume that I'm going to make my educated guess that they probably stopped it when COVID hit. But they still call it a caroling party. It's basically friends and family that go over to their house. And then on Christmas Day itself, it's just their immediate family and me and Kevin, which is incredible. I just feel
How
so
fun.
lucky. Yeah, and they're just so generous and hospitable, and I feel really, really blessed. So, yeah. What about you?
Um, we actually have a Christmas party next week that we're going to, and I can tell you that we don't get invited to very many Christmas parties, like dressy Christmas parties. And this one's like one of his work Christmas parties. So we're going to get dressed up and go to it. And I'm going to skip orchestra practice next week, which is huge because our big concert is coming up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm super excited. Although I sent back the shoes that I had bought because it turns out they were slippery. So now I'm shoeless again. So, yeah,
Oh,
anyway.
poor
But
you. You
that's
have to shop.
that might be rolling into highs and lows. So,
You want to
um,
go first?
sure. So my low is
Okay.
I'm shoeless for the Christmas party. So I better find some
When she
shoes.
says shoeless, she's not really shoeless, everyone. I'm sure there's something in your closet that would fit just right. Are you wearing a ball gown? It sounds like
No,
it's very, very
no,
fancy.
no, I should be though. One of
Yeah.
these days I'm gonna go to an event dressed up like Bridgerton. Um,
I, oh
I
God.
I bought a dress 2 years ago for a Christmas party that was canceled because of the pandemic, and I still have never worn it, so I'm gonna wear it to this party. But,
Well,
I do
and
have to find shoes.
well, I'm sure that you're not suffering for having to shoe shop.
Yep. Anyway, my high is that, like I said, that the orchestra concert's coming up, and I had to sit the last one out because I had COVID, remember? So, I am super excited. For those of you who are not regular listeners, I play second violin. I am a second violinist in the group of second violin players in a community orchestra, and I love it. And we're having a concert. We are going to
Yeah.
be playing uh Jupiter by Holst from the Planets. We're going to be playing David Diamond's Fourth Symphony, and we're going to be playing Beethoven's Eighth Symphony.
That is so cool. I wish I
Yeah.
could see you. Maybe one day I'll be able to watch.
Maybe one of these days I'll put you on a plane and drag you off. Ooh, you'll get to be the first one on and the last one off. Because, they roll you down the gangplank. Anyway, I don't know what it's called, gangplank, gangway. Anywho, Cheryl,
I see
before
such
I
a
go into too
pirate
much
feud.
detail about how you get on and off the plane, what about your highs and lows?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to start with my high because you've inspired me to start with my high. And my high is that I got a check from Rakuten again. The first one was only $1.29. Rakuten, everybody, is a place, a company that you shop through and you get
Place.
like it's online, it's a virtual place. and you get kickbacks. And the first check I got was $1.29, but just because of they send it every 3 months. So I must have just got in, right at the very tail end. I started shopping. But the last one was pretty substantial. I mean, it pays to shop. See? If anybody
Mm.
husbands give you a hard time about shopping, you could say, look at the money I'm making back.
Yeah,
So that was kind of
you gotta lock in that mentality that you have to spend money to make money.
to make money. That's right.
Yeah.
That's my high. And what was my low? My low is my old aging face. There we go. And next, no, um, it really is. Have you ever noticed that from certain angles? Like I'll be looking at my iPad and I can see my reflection in it, and it just scares me sometimes, depending on how I'm sitting.
Oh my
You
gosh.
see,
You
you see
are
the jowl?
you are
No, listen.
so
Let me
dumb.
have let me have
I
my low. Let me have my low, will you? You can
what
see the jowls. You can see the jowls. I can see the neck, and I'm just like, oh, that's frightening. Let's look away, look away. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of it because it's also affecting like makeup. I'm trying to find stuff that will cover my age spots. I will have to say I'm glad I don't have a lot of wrinkles, but I have dark spots. And one of the things like you don't realize when you're young is when you have flawless skin, blemish-free skin, and what a blessing that is. You know what I mean? Like when you're young and you're wearing all this makeup, it's like, no, no, child, let it be free because later on you're going to want to cover up. When you're young, like just show off that beautiful skin, because now I'm trying to cover these dark spots, but I'm trying to find the right makeup to do it. Hey, if anybody out there knows a good, and I mean a good concealer, because I've tried the $5 ones, I've tried the $30 ones, and my dark spots show through each one. So I'm wondering, you know
huh.
how they have green concealer and yellow concealer, like concealer? I don't know what those do. Like if they're supposed to color, people have rosacea, stuff like that. Anyway, write into
I
murder and everything else at gmail.com if you have any tips for me, please.
I think the
All
green
right.
concealer is for Martians, and I think the blue concealer is for people who are on that place from Avatar.
Shut up.
Also, I think that Shrek and Fiona can wear the green concealer too.
No, there's a certain pigment it's for, and I don't know. Anyway, give us some advice, everyone, please.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the answers for that. Anywho, guys, we have some updates. We only have a few more episodes this year, and then Cheryl and I are going to take a 2 week hiatus and we're going to enjoy the holidays and we're going to come back in the new year with a little bit of a new format, a little bit of production change, and lots of new murder and lots of everything else. So, for those 2 weeks, if you are missing the sound of our voices and all of the fun, like savvy, interesting, and mind boggling stuff we talk about, you'll have to go back and listen to our old recordings.
Yeah, and it's only for 2 weeks. We'll be back
Only for
after.
2 weeks. That's right. Also, we have a shout out this week, and it goes to Spotify for sending us our 2023 Wrapped for Podcasters report. It is a report that they sent us basically to kind of give us some data. It was very cute. It had lots of like little streamers and confetti and um and it just gave us a ton of data about our podcast, and I'm going to share with you guys some of that data. For example, we learned that our top episode was number 3, the Casey Anthony documentary from January of this year. It was streamed 195% more than our average episode. We are being listened to in 8 countries, with the United States winning at 98% of our total streams. Most of our new listeners are in the United States and Canada. Our listeners enjoy as their podcast genres true crime, society, and culture and comedy. Isn't that
Woo!
awesome?
That is so awesome.
I used to have a boss that instead of saying genre, she used to say genre. And I remember I
Oh,
used to
Lord.
say to my coworker, who by the way was Vinka, that's how we met. I'd go, "Hey, who's this genre woman she keeps talking about?" And so every time she would say, and there's a new genre that we're doing. I'd be like,
Oh, my.
"Oh, there's genre again popping up at the company meeting." And I don't think she ever realized that the word was genre. It's not genre. Anyway,
Right.
um, the top music genres that our listeners are into are pop, rock, and rap. And
So interesting.
42% of our listeners come from Spotify, 24% from Instagram, 2% from text, 8% other, and 4% from Facebook. So I thought that was super interesting because I thought a higher percentage came from Facebook, but it turns out that they don't. A significantly higher percentage comes from Instagram.
I
And
wonder what the other
finally,
is. What is the
I
other?
know, right? I think the other is Twitter, or what
Okay.
used to be known as Twitter. And finally, our podcast rating is a 5 out of 5. So thank you, Spotify, for putting together this little report for us and sending
Yes.
it to us. It made us feel like a couple of fucking rock stars.
Yes, it did. Thank you, Spotify. It was such a fun report, you
It
guys. I wish
was.
you could see it. It's so fun.
And in our segment, letters from our listeners, we don't have any letters this week. Wah wah.
Ah.
Anywho,
Right.
guys, this week, we are heading right back to murder, and Cheryl has prepared some amazing murder stuff for you guys. Take it away, Cheryl.
Murder stuff. That's what we all love. Yes, we are heading back to murder. I'm gonna take the the mood down here, but um, first I'm gonna say this right off the bat because I keep forgetting. So my sources for this were Investigation Discovery and good old Wikipedia. Um, so y'all know how much I love true crime. I love this TV series. You might have heard of it because it's been on for 11 seasons. The
Oh,
11th season just aired this year, and the 12th season is yet to be announced. But I think that based on the popularity of the show and the quality of the show, so I think critically it's also rated really well, received really well. I think it's going to come back. But the series is called See No Evil, and it was on Investigation Discovery originally, but you can also watch it on Max, and I'm sure there's probably other places that you can watch it. But every second of every day, millions of Americans are caught on CCTV. CCTV is closed circuit television, basically security cameras, right? Remember, Joy, we were talking about that like earlier in the year, how
yeah.
you can't pick your nose or put or pick your nose or pull your underwear out of your butt without it getting caught on camera.
Yeah.
So just know that you are living your life in a CCTV world, but it can be used for good, like in this series. So, like I said, most Americans are caught on CCTV, millions of Americans, millions of people around the world. Most of them are honest citizens going about their everyday lives, but a few are guilty of unspeakable crimes. See No Evil is a groundbreaking series about how real crimes are solved with the help of surveillance cameras. Police reveal how CCTV footage has unlocked the answer to cases that otherwise might have remained unsolved, leaving dangerous killers at large. The series features real footage and dramatic reconstruction combined with firsthand testimony from police, witnesses, and families. Now, they use reenactments, okay, and I know some people are really against reenactments because sometimes they can be so cheesy. But I
Yeah.
have to tell you that this series is done so well because of the balance that they use with the foot. The real star of these episodes is the CCTV footage,
Mm.
um, and the police and investigators because they're the ones that piece it together. So they have interviews with witnesses and families, and the reenactments are really they take a back seat. So don't let that don't let that prevent you from watching it, because if you love true crime, I really recommend this show. And I might in the future do other episodes of See No Evil. But today I'm going to talk about season nine. This is coming from season nine, episode nine, called Rideshare Nightmare. And what I love about this story, what I hate about it, is that a woman, a very young woman, was murdered. But one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this, Joy, is because I think it's great if we can bring like awareness to something and use these stories as a cautionary tale for other young
Right.
women or other young people. So, and it's very interesting how they piece together. So they'll follow a suspect, a car, or whatever it may be, maybe not even right at the incident where they think it happened, but they'll have to go to neighboring businesses and get their CCTV footage to see if they can see it from that angle. One of the shows I saw I thought was really interesting was they couldn't see the car of the suspect anymore from the building's footage. So they, in the footage that they're looking from the building, they see a bus go by the suspect vehicle, and they think buses have security footage. So they contact that bus. They hunt it down to the very bus that was going by that car,
Right.
and they look at their through their footage through the window of the bus, and they can see that car going by, and they can get more information about the car. It's incredible. I personally love it. It's very interesting to watch. And these, it's wrapped up in a 50-minute episode, but in real life, these police officers and investigators have to sit through hours and hours and hours of footage and piece it together like a puzzle. But
Right.
it's incredible. It's like with Koberger, right? His white Hyundai Elantra was seen,
Right.
and that was a big
Right.
piece of.
Going back and forth multiple
Mhm.
times.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many cases that would not be solved if it weren't for CCTV footage. So
Oh,
today
yeah.
we're going to talk about Samantha Lee Josephson. She was a senior in college and was a month and a half away from graduating at the time of her death. She was born in Princeton, New Jersey, and grew up in Robbinsville, New Jersey. She attended the University of South Carolina, where she majored in political science. Samantha planned on graduating in 2019 and attending Drexel University School of Law. She earned a full scholarship to Drexel University, as well as a partial scholarship to Rutgers, and aspired to practice international law. She was a kind, beautiful, and amazing young woman. She worked hard and went after what she wanted. On March 29, 2019, Samantha was taking a break from her studies. She was hanging out at the Hub Apartments after not seeing her friends for a while, so she was really looking forward to a night out with them. She and her friends head to the Bird Dog Bar in Five Points. Five Points is a neighborhood in South Carolina. Five Points was a popular area for kids, for college kids to meet up at the end of their night and take Uber rides home. 120 miles away in Charleston, Samantha's boyfriend Greg Cobishley is at home. They had been dating for about 2 years at that point, and Greg says they kept in touch more than most. They would text about small things like what you have for lunch. They were constantly in contact all day long. So Greg and Samantha text throughout the night, and Samantha is trying to convince Greg to come to Columbia and join them. But because she was going to visit him a few days later in Charleston, he decided against it because he figured, I'm going to see her in a couple of days. And unfortunately, this would be a decision he would come to regret. At 2 a.m., Samantha decides to call it a night and take an Uber back to the Hub Apartments. The bars close at 3 a.m., but Samantha had to work the next day, and she was always very diligent about being on time to work, so she left the bar alone earlier than everyone else. Because of their long distance relationship, Greg uses Find My Friends app to keep track of her. He tracks her that night to make sure she got into the Uber and made it back safely to the apartments. He sees that she goes in the opposite direction from the apartment, so Greg tries to call Samantha several times. She doesn't answer, and now he's worried because it's unlike her, so he starts calling her roommates. He sends them a screenshot of her last location, and they go to check it out, but they don't find Samantha and they head home. Greg continues to call Samantha, And after 20 unanswered calls and 20 unanswered FaceTimes, he convinces himself that he's overreacting and there's probably a good explanation that they'll laugh about later. So he decides to go to bed feeling there's not really much more he can do. But at 11:45 a.m., Greg wakes up to three missed calls from Samantha's roommate, Carly. Greg calls Carly and learns that Samantha never made it home. Carly had called Samantha's workplace to see if she had shown up there, but she had not. They now know something is wrong. They call hospitals to see if they can find her. They get on her laptop to see if there are any clues to her whereabouts on it. And they see that she requested an Uber, but the ride was canceled because she never showed up for that ride. And now they are panicked. Samantha's friends call the police, and while en route to Columbia, Greg calls Samantha's parents and lets them know she's missing. Her parents drive to Columbia. They are several hours away. After talking to police, Greg joins the rest of the friends to help in the search for Samantha. The first thing Greg thinks to do is to go where Samantha was last tracked. He knocks on doors asking if anyone saw anything suspicious, but no one has seen anything. He then goes to the Bird Dog Bar. This is where Samantha and her friends were hanging out to see if they have security cameras that may have picked up the car Samantha got into. So they cue the video up to the time Samantha arrived at the bar. You can see her
Wait, I'm
entering the
just
bar.
curious. I
Yeah.
just want to stop you for a quick second and ask, what kind of do they go into detail on what kind of degree Greg has? Because, like, I know he's her boyfriend, and I know that they keep in touch a lot, but based just off of what you've described to me, like that the lengths he's gone to so far, one, he sounds like if they were not dating, he would be the world's worst stalker. But number two, like that
Oh
is
yeah.
like, it's almost like he's a forensics cop or something.
No, you know what? I don't know if they did say in the beginning when he's first introduced in the episode. I don't remember if they said, but you have to, Joy, the younger generation, we're in another demographic, but the younger generation, they know about this stuff. Like they know the reason. Listen, I'm just speaking the truth.
You're
I'm
making
just calling it like a
it, you're like, listen, I have to tell you something
news
very important.
flash. News flash. Fiona's gonna be rolling her eyes.
Oh my God.
No, it's true.
You are killing me. It's like you're talking about like some kind of crazy monkey in the zoo that no one's seen before that they're like, we found a monkey that went extinct 200 years ago.
No, listen. You know, I just watched a show called Unseen on I think it's Netflix. Prime time. Prime, I'm not sure. But the girl is abducted by her ex and she escapes, but she loses her eyeglasses and she has really bad eyesight. So she's out in the forest and she calls like any this number for that she got a missed call from. Anyway, there's a whole reason that she has this number on her phone. And this girl at like a 7-Eleven, well, it wasn't called 7-Eleven, it was called Gator or something. It was some inconvenience store, some convenience store. She answers the phone. Anyway, she helps her through FaceTime and be her eyes and all this stuff. I don't know. Anyway, there's so many movies with young people figuring out stuff. So he might have nothing to do with anything technical, but he no,
I
he knew.
mean,
Well,
maybe it's so funny. I can't even get a glass jar open without handing it to my husband. And this guy's tracked her. He's like literally like opened like all these like apps and he's like, I mean, he's practically like dusted for fingerprints. It's amazing.
yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, he just it's a way of life for these youngins. You know, for him, I mean, yeah, thankfully there was no nefarious reason that he was tracking her location, but yeah, he knows what to do. He he gets the security footage from the bar, right? And you can watch her movements, and it's very fascinating. So while I'm telling you this, try to picture that video, because even though they do a reenactment with actors playing these real people, you get to see the real victim in through these videos. and it's very chilling. So you see Samantha, she's wearing a bright orange top, so you can see her. The bar is packed, but you can see her. You pick her up. Um, and you can see her having fun. There's no distress in her, her demeanor. She's just having fun with her friends. Nothing alarming is going on. And at 2 a.m., you see her walking through the bar towards the exit door, and she's looking down at her phone, where we presume she's calling an Uber. So now they switch to the outside view of the bar, and she's seen
Mhm.
standing by a tree alone, still on the phone. And then you see a car turn a corner, and she starts walking up to it, thinking it's her ride, but then the car drives off. So she goes back to the sidewalk and she stands there. Then a little bit later, a dark four-door sedan pulls up and she gets in the back seat of the car. Her friends know from her laptop that her Uber ride was canceled because she never showed up. So this can only
Oh.
mean that the car she got into was not the actual Uber.
Oh.
Greg informs the police of the bar's surveillance video. Leading the hunt for the suspect vehicle is investigator Chris Odom with the Columbia Police Department. The department has a company called Statewide Security, and the security company has a bunch of cameras down in the Five Points area. They were sent a request for their video during the time frame that Samantha was at the bar and then got into the car. There is a camera on every corner of Five Points, and they were able to get security footage of the parking lot adjacent to the bird dog. They zoom in on the footage of the dark sedan pulling up in front of Samantha. They zoom in on the car and see a silhouette of the person driving the car and can see there's no one else in the car. And they know this is their suspect. After Samantha gets in the car, they now need to see where she's taken next. With the various cameras positioned throughout Five Points, they see the car cruising through the streets. They track it as far as they could, which was about a mile and a half out of Five Points, before they lose sight of the car. Investigator Odom determines the car is a late model Chevy Impala and issues a bolo, which is be on the lookout. They go back and look at the video over and over again to see if they have missed anything. And this is the thing. I've watched other episodes where you watch it and you think, okay, there was nothing significant in that footage. But they say they watch it over and over and over. It could be a 5 second piece. They watch it
Huh.
over and over because they're like, we could miss something. And in one of the episodes, they had tasked a poor guy who's watching the thing over and over again. He's like, "Hey, Captain." And he says, "Come over here." And he finally noticed he's looking at the same car for I don't know how long, but finally it jumps out at him that one of the hubcaps on the front is cracked. And that's how, because they had like how many green, Toyota Camrys or whatever the car was in that area, but they were
Right.
now looking for one with a cracked hub, so it narrows it down. So it's really really
Interesting.
remarkable. Yeah. So so they go, like I said, they go back and look at video over and over again to see if they missed anything, and they look at different angles of the car. They look to see if they can make out the license plate. They watch the car make a U-turn in the adjacent parking lot and pull right in front of Samantha like a shark circling its prey. Bank records reveal the morning after Samantha went missing, an attempt was made to use her card at an ATM 43 miles away from Columbia. The police then follow up with a search warrant for the bank to obtain the ATM video. So now we're going to see ATM video, which we all know you're on camera when you're,
Right, right.
at one of these ATMs. So the video is queued up to the time the transaction was made, and we see a male in dark clothing, gloves. He had a hoodie on, and he pulled the drawstring tight so it was over his face, obviously trying to hide his identity. He makes several successful attempts to withdraw the cash. Let me say that again. He makes several unsuccessful, and not sound like Professor Fudd or whatever. He makes several unsuccessful attempts to withdraw cash, and the police know this is their man. He either did something to Samantha, or at the minimum, he knows what happened to Samantha. And an hour later, the suspect tries an ATM back in Colombia. The suspect is dressed the same way, obviously trying to hide his identity. In New Zion, a very small community east of Columbia, two turkey hunters were walking around the woods looking to find any turkeys. On the way back to the car, one of them notices something out of the corner of his eye. They walk up closer to determine what it is, and it turns out to be a body. They contact law enforcement. The body matches the description of Samantha Josephson. The condition of the body is gruesome. She has sustained a
Hmm.
variety of injuries throughout her body. Investigators would eventually learn she had been stabbed over 100 times.
Whoa.
Greg and Samantha's parents are informed at the police department about what happened to Samantha. So finding her body ramps up the need to find the killer before he kills anyone else. Every officer is out looking for a black Impala. Jeffrey Kraft, a canine handler at the Columbia Police Department, studies the video of the Impala, playing the videos over and over again. He then begins his search in the area where Samantha's phone was last tracked. He drives up and down the streets looking for the car, and then he decides to go back to the 5 Point area. He turns a corner and finds himself right behind a black Impala matching the description to a T. He gets the driver to pull over, and as he walks up to the car, a black male is in the driver's seat. He is acting oddly, so Officer Kraft knows this is not going to be a routine stop. Other officers show up as backup. The driver has been smoking marijuana. He can smell it. The officer can smell it. And Officer Kraft asks him to step out of the car, and the suspect runs. But there's enough police officers in the area that they swarm him and they're able to catch him. Officer Kraft inspects the car under probable cause. He finds a set of keys on a pink keychain and a pink cell phone on the side of the driver's seat. The key and the phone clearly belong to a female. He then shines his flashlight into the back seat and finds large quantities of blood everywhere on the seats, the inside of the doors, the headrest, the back of the driver's seat, everywhere. In the trunk of the car, they find more clothing. They find clothing saturated with blood, and knowing they have a major crime scene, they back off and secure the area for crime scene techs. While CSI processes the car, the suspect is identified as 24-year-old Nathaniel Rowland. He's taken to the Columbia Police Department. Officers try to talk to him, but he refuses to say anything. At the University of South Carolina, the community gathers to remember Samantha there. It is a large turnout. Nathaniel Rowland denies having anything to do with Samantha's murder. Investigators then reach out to his girlfriend, Maria Howard. They ask her about the night of Samantha's murder. She says that he picked her up from work that evening and took her home. She said he stayed the night with her, but she fell asleep at 1:30. So when she woke up, he was gone. So she can't corroborate that he was there the whole night. Um,
Oh,
and
interesting.
he was supposed to take her to work the next morning, but he was late, and so he she was supposed to be at work at 7, but he came back at 8 to take her to work. So in
And
essence,
she
his
didn't notice anything off about his car?
yeah, hang tight. He's unaccounted for almost 7 hours, and later that day, she says she saw him cleaning the car wearing gloves. She says
Mhm.
she saw a lot of blood in the car, but was too scared to call the police. And that part was really interesting because they show the interrogation. That's the other. They'll show you the interrogation of the suspect and the witnesses. And she at first is trying to skirt the whole issue with the car. So the detective was so smart because he asked her just benign questions like, "What was he doing?" And she's like, "Well, he was cleaning. What was he? Was he using gloves?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then he asks her a few more questions, and then he goes, "So how much blood was there in the back seat?" He doesn't ask her, "Did you see blood?" Because he knew she did, and he just called it off.
Oh,
And he's like,
so interesting.
"Yeah, how much? So how much?" After all that small talk, so to speak, he goes, "So how much blood did you see?" And she says, "A lot, but I was too scared to call the police." So after speaking with Maria, a search warrant is obtained to search her house. They find bags of Nathaniel's bloody clothing, bloody paper towels, and bleach in her trash behind her house. They even find a bloody murder weapon, which is some type of multi-purpose tool. The items found in the car and trash can were covered with Samantha's blood. Investigators received information that Nathaniel went to a cell phone repair store the day after Samantha was abducted. Here again, we can see security video of his visit to the store. He tries to sell Samantha's cell phone. They compare footage from
Oh.
the store video to the ATM and can corroborate this is the same person with the same clothing, and that very clothing was found in the trash bags covered with Samantha's blood. Nathaniel Rowland is officially charged with kidnapping and murder. He denies it, never explaining how the evidence got into his car. Police pieced together the events of that night. Samantha got into his vehicle believing this was her Uber ride. And when you watch the video, Joy, it's so you you watch her. This is a real person. This is the real person, and you're watching it. And you're going, "Don't get in the car. Don't get in the car."
Mm.
It's so sad. So she got into this vehicle believing it was her Uber ride, and after she enters the car, the child locks were probably engaged, preventing her from getting out of the car. And no one will know why he viciously murdered her, but she fought for her life. There's clear evidence that she fought very hard. Her footprint was found on the backseat window, probably kicking him, trying to kick out the window. And after murdering her, he dumps her body 70 miles away in New Zion. He tries unsuccessfully to use her ATM card before he returns to take his girlfriend to work. With overwhelming evidence, Nathaniel Rowland is tried for the kidnap and murder of Samantha. On July 27, 2021, after 1 hour of deliberation, the jury finds him guilty on all charges and receives life in prison. So this could have happened to anyone, anywhere, anytime. After Samantha's murder, her family started a foundation called What's My Name? And the acronym SAMI, SAMI, stands for Stop, Review Safety Features, Ask, What's My Name? Match, License Plate Display, and Inform, Share Details. Their goal is to educate everyone on following these steps. Have the driver roll down their window and ask them, "What's my name?" If they don't know it, don't get in. And the family has said that they received a lot of positive feedback, and they even had feedback thanking them for saving their lives, which I thought was incredible. So people, heard about this, heard about Samantha's story, and it's as simple as that. Like the driver pulls up, you ask them, "What's my name?" And if they don't know
Yeah,
it, you don't get in the
that's
car. It's as simple
crazy.
as that.
It's
So
funny. I just have to throw this out there for those of you who live in rural communities like I do and maybe don't have ride sharing opportunities like people who live in more like towns and cities and metropolitan areas. I took my kids to Miami Beach, Florida for spring break last year or the year before, the year before. It was so I took a ninth grader and a 12th grader, something like that. And I went by
mhm,
myself and I've traveled a lot and traveled by myself a lot, but because we were staying at an Airbnb and because I had there's limited parking in a place like Miami Beach and I had one spot with the place I rented. I didn't want to take my car out and drive around. Also, you can spend an hour in traffic and go 5 miles in Miami in South Beach.
yeah,
And I didn't
yeah.
want to do that. So I downloaded the Uber app and I, entered my credit card and blah, 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 blah. And then I talked and then I went on Google and I said, like, what are the five most important things to know? And it said, wait until the driver pulls up and rolls down the window and says your name. If they don't say your name, don't say, hi, is this the ride for so and so?
So,
And then
yeah,
also, they'll say their name, so you know who your driver is because it pops up on the app. And then walk around to the back of the car and look at the license plate and make sure it matches the license plate of the car that's, coming because that means that they're actually driving for Uber or Lyft or whatever the ride sharing company and that they're legit because they've been vetted. They've, their license is captured. They most likely have a dash cam or they have some kind of recording process going on because they have their own security that they also have to look out for. And what's funny is I I took we the three of us took Uber at least 5 or 6 times. It was the first time, and I know that sounds crazy to people listening to this who live in metropolitan areas, but again, I live rurally. When would I ever need to take an Uber? And
Right.
since then, I have taken Uber again multiple times when I've gone to metropolitan areas. But it's funny that like that was on here because that's probably a feature that was added to ride sharing because of this story, because of this
Yeah.
case.
Well, and they give you a description of the car, right? They tell you it's a
Yeah.
Forerunner
They'll
and
say it's
whatnot.
a black Nissan Altima, 4 doors, and then they'll say like, driver Raul. And then, they'll and when you look in the car, bend down and they'll open the window or whatever, they'll say, "Oh, ride for Joy or ride for Cheryl," or, you know. And so
Yeah,
they
and
know who you are and you know who they are, and then you just match that license to make sure that's legit. And then you get in the car. Because I mean, I was riding in the car with two other people, but there are hundreds and thousands of people who are riding by themselves.
alone, and I, no one will know why she did that. Maybe she was just really distracted. Maybe she's super tired, or a little tipsy.
It's 2 in the morning.
Because obviously, she didn't check anything out because the other Uber driver, the real Uber driver, canceled the ride because she wasn't there. So
Mhm.
he was coming, he or she was coming. So I don't know. It's just so sad. I'm telling you, when you're
It's a
watching that
sad
video,
story.
you're just like, don't get in the car, don't get in the car. It's just heartbreaking because when you're watching her get in the car, that's the last moment of her life. It is just gut wrenching. But if this, can help anyone out there, that's what we'd like to do, and that's what the family wants to do. They have a website called What's My Name spelled out.org, and you can look at Samantha's story and the things the awareness that they've tried to bring to everyone. I gotta tell you, I am such a chicken. I've never taken an Uber. I've probably taken two or three
Really?
Uber rides in my life, and they've been, I think, two of them with Kevin. Like, I don't know if I'd want to ride one on my own. Well,
Oh,
some people have hitchhiked, so this is actually much more secure than hitchhiking. Some of us who shall remain nameless. But
Stay tuned for Adventures in Hitchhiking coming to you in 2024.
oh my gosh. But yeah, everyone, please take a note. Let's learn from her story.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's a very sad story.
that's
Um,
a very sad story. Cheryl, tell us about that website.
it's called what'smyname.org. You can look up Samantha's story, more information on her family and the foundation that they started and all of that. But I hope that this helps. I think it must have been such a good feeling to have feedback from women and men, whoever that said, "Thank you, you saved my life." Because I'm sure, you get careless, right? You don't think things
Mhm.
like this are going to happen to you, but they can
Oh,
happen to
especially
anyone.
when you're young, especially when you're young.
Mhm.
I mean, I can tell you like 99% of the shit I did when I was young, I would not do right now.
Yeah, you just think you're invincible and you get a little bit
Mhm.
distracted or whatever, and you just don't think, honestly don't think that it's going to happen to you.
You
You
don't.
don't. You really
You
don't.
really, really
So,
don't.
and these are such simple things to do to save your life, to keep
Yeah.
you safe, save your life. It's so easy. So it's unfortunate we don't know what happened, that she wasn't looking for the car that was on her app that was going to pick her up,
Yep.
but it's very
Yep.
unfortunate.
Well, I'm going to do something that we never do, and that is I just want to also mention because this popped up in the news this week. And since this is a murder podcast and we have not done an episode on George Floyd, but I know it will be done at some point because I think that's very important to do. Derek Chauvin was stabbed in federal prison this week. He was convicted of murdering George Floyd during a 2020 arrest and was serving a sentence of more than 20 years. And so I just want to throw that out there because I know that, this case had a lot of like, social significance, also a, a lot of like, media coverage. It was on the front page of every paper. There was so much chatter online about this and so much, I mean, the New York Times, and Washington Post and all these giant publications, and the case was so high profile. So, like I said, I don't usually piggyback another case on top of your murder cases, Cheryl, but I just want to throw that out there because I know it's something that we're gonna cover that at some point. So very
Is there
interesting.
news about?
He's in very critical condition because of this stabbing that he's sustained.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that
Yeah.
sometime.
Well, Cheryl, I mean, thank you so much for
Oh,
doing all that research for this case. Um, and that was a horrible, horrible murder and a horrible crime. But you know what also is a crime?
what's that, Joy?
That we are out of time.
That is a crime. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and don't complicate your day.
All creativity, commentary, and opinions in this podcast belong to Cheryl and Joy. Music composed and mixed by Gabe McKeon. Logo and merch created and managed by Kevin Callan. Podcast editing and advertising by Joy McKeon. Legal representation provided by John Bojezek. Please like, subscribe, follow, and listen. You can listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and YouTube, and you can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com.
Bye, fishes.